My name is Joe Ed Gaddis, and I was born in 1941, perhaps with a one-track mind. And so by 1945, I got a Lionel electric train for Christmas, and that was really exciting. And I've never looked back since as far as a hobby. About 1955, I decided I wanted to be more like the real railroads and go outside in nature and run a railroad outside. But having very limited funds, I had to build my own from scrap materials. A worn out lawnmower engine. I did make some wheels in a cast iron skillet in melted aluminum at about 16 years old, which was unusual. And then I was able to finally, this sounds funny, save up $1 to buy a catalog in 1960 from Little Engines. Now, Little Engines was a premier company that had been around for 20 or 30 years that produced miniature steam locomotive parts, 1/8 full size. That's the size I was looking for. By 1964, I was able to start the first section on this little engine. It was a 040 switching engine is what it was, and it was to burn coal. My wife made fun of me when I said, I'm going to burn gas. She said, you mean you're going to take all that time to build a steam locomotive and then burn gas? She laughed me to scorn. I never looked back on that. I went to coal quick. During that period of time, Leroy Nesson, who was a friend of mine and a friend of my dad's, began to be interested because we were members in a model railroad club in Nashville, Tennessee, called the Central Tennessee Model Railroad Association. He wrote a letter in about 1965 and suggested that we convert to live steam, of all things. There was no live steam around. He said further we could find a piece of property and build a track. And this was really, really forward thinking for somebody back then. Of course, most people kind of made fun of this, but we got together and Leroy was the first secretary, sort of the club as far as writing letters and PR. He did a real good job of this, and he really stirred the pot. He got a lot of our good people on board, including the man who was able to get this track space worked out with the Murray County Park people, Paul Kraft, of whom we named a tunnel for him before he passed away a few years ago. So that's kind of the story of some of our founding fathers. There were 9 in December of 1966 that met together in Nashville, Tennessee and formed the Mid-South Live Steamers. And from that point on, we have slowly built up to now we have an extensive railroad in this park.
My name is Harry Wade, and I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm one of the founding members of the Mid-South Live Steamers. I've always been fascinated by steam power, even as a small child. And when I got to be about 18 or 19, I became aware of live steam. So I searched out anyone in the Nashville area who might have been interested or was interested in that, and I found one person. Then I found 2 people. Then I found 3 people, and before you know it, we had a half a dozen local people interested and active, actually building live steam locomotives. So in December of 1966, we banded together and formed the Mid-South Live Steamers. And it's developed into what it is today.
Well, I got involved with the miniature railroads years ago when there was a lot of publicity called backyard railroads. And I thought, hey, that's fun. Maybe that would be something nice to have around the house. But I never did build a railroad. And then I got word that there was a train available in an estate. One of my friends told me about it. So I went and looked at it, and sure enough, it was a little coal-burning steam locomotive, and I fell in love with the thing right away. So I bought it, and I had never seen one of these miniature trains before. So I brought it, set up the track, and got going in the train business. And then it's just been going on forever after that. That was in Sandusky, Ohio, when I was still with NASA, the space agency. So I retired in 1970, went down to Arkansas, and another friend and I built a track in Arkansas, and so we did a lot of railroading there. I missed being a charter member by one meeting. The word didn't get around, and I attended a meeting down in Arkansas, where Austin Barr's place, and that was the second or third meeting of the club. And I joined the club then, and we just kept coming back and forth from Arkansas here. And finally, my wife decided she didn't like Hot Springs National Park, and she wanted to move somewhere. And I said, well, okay, we've been going to Columbia every year anyway. Why don't we just move to Columbia? Yeah. So I live here in this area of Columbia, and that's kind of the way it's been through the whole business. I was at the meeting where we decided to put this track in this park. And then the next year, well, they had just a simple loop, and we had our first meeting here. And from there on, it's been more or less once or twice a year that I came in here.
I'm Hank Sherwood. I've been with the Mid-South Life Steamers for about 40 years. I was president three times, and I bet the club starts getting bigger and bigger, and people kind of get into this hobby and maybe, buy a little one that's already been made, or the secret of this is to actually build it, because then you know how it works. And it's just, when you're finished and you run them, it's just, a wonderful feeling that you've created something, and it makes you real dirty. Coal and everything. That's burned coal, so it's just a wonderful, wonderful hobby. It's keeps you off the streets.
The little engine that I bought was a coal burner, and my wife kind of complained that I came in all dirty from that coal burner, so I got a chance to build another train that was all brass and red and everything, and I built it for her and fire it with propane so it's not so dirty, and then she never would run the thing. So I finally got rid of the coal burner, and right now I have this little, what they call all American standard. It's 440 engine, burns propane, and I sit on the tender, my feet go on a crossbar and reach over in the cab with the throttle and the whistle and the brakes and things of that sort. Then I also have another train, which is like a diesel. It's a gas electric. It has a gas engine, driving a generator, driving a power controller, and it operates more like the big diesels. So you sit with a control box and it sets your power as you go along. So I have the two engines that I run.
Well, I'm Greg Gloss, and this is my wife Susie.
Hi.
And been member since 1994, and kind of the way I got interested in it is one of the fellows I worked with asked me if I'd ever seen the little trains in Murray County Park, and I said no. We moved down here from Ohio, so he says, well, they're having a meet this weekend, so he says, let's go down after work and we'll see. Well, I came down here and saw these things, and I said, well, I've got to do that. And so currently I'm the secretary of the club, but Susie does all the work. So
no, he does all the paperwork, and I just do the front work here at the meet. So
I am not a machinist, but I started talking to a fellow named Paul Bryan, one of the charter members of the club, and Paul kind of introduced me into really didn't know much about how a steam engine ran, but he had his engine here and kind of started teaching me little things, and he became my mentor, and I started accumulating machine tools. I bought a little clausing lathe and then a Enco mill, and accumulated a good bit more since then. But Paul designed, I've built 8 locomotives in the since 1990, '86, I guess, is when I finished the first one. And all of those engines, of all the engines out of the 8, Paul designed 3 of them. And he would email me the drawings, and then every week or 2, I'd go up to his house and we'd talk about what I was doing, or he'd come down to my house and check the work out. And Paul's pretty critical. He wanted things right, and he would just, his little saying was, well, that's unacceptable, which meant you have to make it over. It's not repairable. So, but anyway, that's who I learned from.
We became friends with them, and Bernice and I used to make cakes all the time for birthdays. We'd celebrate with them, and unfortunately they both passed away now, but they gave us lots of good memories with the club. There's a lot of extremely intelligent people in this hobby, and a lot of times people who make things and can do things with their hands aren't always thought of as extremely intelligent, but you can sort of feel the vibes here from the men talking and so forth. So it's fun to be around them, and even though you may not understand everything they're talking about, it's interesting.
We're all very different. We have different backgrounds, we have different lifestyles, we have different interests. This hat that I'm wearing is called a grease top, and it's the hat that a British locomotive engineer, which they call a driver, would wear. So this is a driver's cap, and the reason it's called a grease top is because it has an oilcloth top which resists the grease and oil blown out of a locomotive. One of our founders, Paul Bryan, who was my first mentor, started me off by allowing me to come to his workshop, teaching me some basics of metalworking and machining. But every week or so, he would hand me a small stack of Model Engineer magazines. And Model Engineer was the British live steam magazine. So he said, take these home, read them. And I would. And through that exposure, I became a great fan and lover of British steam locomotives. So that's my peculiarity. And everyone else in the club has their own peculiarity.
I'm Bob Achenbach. I live in Smyrna, Tennessee, and I joined this club in 1994. I started my locomotive in New York in 1984. It's Pennsylvania H6SB, number 2846. 2846 is the only remaining engine of its type, and that's in the Pennsylvania State Railway Museum. In building this engine, New Zealand, Australia, Germany, England, France, even though they're on the metric system, they're 7¼ gauge, the distance between the rails. Eastern Pennsylvania, New York, all up through England, they're 7¼ So when I started building this engine in New York, it was 7¼ Had to tear it all apart when the company relocated me and make it 7½. It originally was coal-fired, then I decided to oil-fire it, and that was a big learning experience because I realized how little I knew about the science of oil firing. So it's been a good ride. I have 7 cars. I have a couple of stationary engines. I have an 88-year-old Stover hit-and-miss utility engine and an antique John Deere tractor, but this is my only steam locomotive.
I'm Scott Reedy. I am the current vice president of the Mid-South Live Steamers. When I was a child, my mother would bring me over here to the track. I always loved trains, and my mother would bring me over to the track. I'd come up here and get allergy shots in Columbia, so I'm local. And I would come over here and she would let me walk around the track. What track was here then? I would just walk around it. And I knew somebody had to have a train to run on it. Why would you build a track if you didn't have anything to put on it? And then finally, somebody told me what weekend the trains were going to be up here, and I think I was in the 1st grade. I believe it was about a year or 2 later I joined as a junior member, so I've really been hanging around here for probably about 31 or 2 years, 33 years, something like that. There's been an awful lot of change in the makeup of people that are here, the type of mix of motive power that's here. In the early days, first few meets I had, a big train meet that we would have, a big spring meet might be 22 or 24 locomotives show up. That was big. Now you have 60, 70 locomotives. Back then you would have, if there were 25 locomotives show up, 20 of them or something would be steamers, and the other 4 or 5 would be gas or something like that. Now you have 22 or 3 steamers show up, and the other 30 or 40 that show up are gas or electric or something like that, some other type of motive power. So that's, the mix has changed.
I'm Sandra McBroom. I live in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. And my husband and I came down here for maybe 25, maybe 30 years. We came down here and used to stand in line over here and watch the trains go around and ride when they first had the small track. And I knew it was only a matter of time before we would be getting a steam engine. So we purchased our first steam engine out of Memphis, Tennessee. A gentleman brought it down here, and so my husband went and got it. And so then he got Live Steam magazine, maybe a year or so after that. And he found a big mountain engine that was in California. So we went to San Francisco and bought the 306, was a mountain engine, beautiful engine. And I drove all the way out there and made track and put it in the back of the van we had and brought it back here and ran it here on the track. So it was at that point I knew that I was going to need to have a train of my own. So I told him, I said, I need a train. I want one with key and forward and reverse. I'll be running and you can be steaming up. So he was very generous and bought me my engine, and I wanted it to look like the 611s. It came primed, and it was awful looking green color, you know, so we had it painted red and the red and black color scheme, you know, and he put a car on the back of it so it'd be more streamlined, and he decided that we needed to have hopper cars to put the chairs down in the side of it so that when a person sat in it that they would be very safe and they wouldn't fall off of the train. So I have now, you know, like 9 hopper cars. Each one of the hopper cars we have 4 grandchildren, they have their initials with their birth dates on them. So I think that's kind of neat, you know. My husband passed away a year and a half ago from pancreatic cancer, but I've been coming down here since he passed away, and everybody's been really good to help me with, you know, the loading and unloading of the trains, and I'll enjoy seeing everyone ride on the train. I'm not real sure why more women are not into it. I do enjoy running the engine, and I hope that maybe in the future more women will, you know, take part in it. It is, it's a fun thing. I seem to be the only lady out here that's riding on a train, but maybe in the future, maybe I'll inspire someone, another lady, to be an engineer, you know, and run a train down here.
Name is John Norcross from Robbinsville, North Carolina. I believe the first year I was here was 1996, and been here ever since. Life member. Yeah. Great bunch of guys. I'm retired off the railroad, so it all kind of blends in. I guess probably the biggest change is changing the membership. Getting younger people involved, getting different people involved doing track work, and where we've got better track, we've probably got better track this meet than we've had in 10, 12 years. And it's a lot of hard work.
My name is Bob Brand. I was in the Air Force for 24 years. Used to fly B-47s. I joined the club in '87, and became secretary about 92 and gave it up about 2006 and turned it over to Greg Gloss. And you look at the track today, it's a complete turnover from when I took over. We had one building, we had no tunnel, we had no passenger terminal, so we changed quite a bit. One meet, about 90-something, Cannonball gave us a gravel car, and Dwight picked up the car, rebuilt it, modified it, and we started laying gravel on the track. We had very little gravel on the track. And then we bought 3 or 4 more, and by then we dumped tons of gravel. Matter of fact, if you were to replace this entire thing, it would cost you over $1 million. Easy. The gravel, work, buildings, anything you want to put in, labor, you couldn't replace it for less than $1 million. That's how far this club has come in 50 years.
I organize the track work days. Several of us will go out and we'll assess the track. We'll say this area needs some work here, this area needs some ballast here. We'll make a prioritized list. When we have work days, then we go out and attack the list, try to knock things off the list, and then the next work day we'll move on to the next thing. We temporarily get something done, and of course nothing's ever permanently fixed. Several years later you're always going to have to do something to it again, but we're always reassessing, looking, and then we go back and try to fix. So that's been my role so far. I try to organize and get the worst areas of the track worked on.
My brother and I, we come down twice a year for the spring meet and the fall meet, 2 weeks before the meet, and just to work on the track and stuff and equipment. We do a lot of the bridge maintenance. I painted the caboose here, and just stuff like that needs to be done.
Before the meets, the guys, the track crews work a lot in February and March to get ready for the meets, and they probably, just for this meet, built about 500 feet of new track and probably replaced 1,000 ties just, individually. So it's work that nobody knows we do, that we have Saturday work days once a month, but then as we get close to meet, we work every weekend, so get ready. And it's so far everything's running smoothly out there. The track's nice right now. So.
Well, we got money mostly from donations. If we depended strictly on dues, we'd never make it, but people have been very generous to it. The local people have been very generous to it. The park people have been very generous. We have an agreement with the park supervisors to have the layout. We don't pay for electricity, we don't pay for water. All we have to do is maintain the area nice. The caboose, we one day decided to buy a caboose. It cost us $2,000. It cost us $6,000 to get it from the thing. And it was filthy, but it only cost, we got it out of Florida. And there was a lot of changes went on, and a lot of hard work. And a lot of people enjoy. Every time you bring a train out, the kids come running over here. Okay, mister, can I have a ride? But a lot of changes have been made over the years, and I enjoyed it very much.
The park has been very gracious to us and the citizens of Maury County. They've really never turned us down on anything reasonable we've asked for, including the caboose, and which is quite an asset to our club.
My name's Chuck Norman. I've been coming down here for about 20 years, but I've been a member of the club for about 10 years. We just started, I heard about it from another member and just started coming down here and just really grew interested in it. And we finally obtained equipment to run, and we've just been doing that now for several years now. I love all the people here. We work hard, we just come down on Saturdays and work on stuff and just have a good time.
I'm Ted Norcross, and I live in Robbinsville, North Carolina, and I've been here about 20 years, 20 seasons. My wife works up there in the putting out the tickets. And we come and stay 2 weeks. We come 2 weeks early and do extra work because we live so far away. It takes us 7 hours to get here. I've run this crossing here. People can run it themselves, but since everything has to cross through here, so if somebody here, it operates much faster. And when you're hauling people, you got to keep it moving. The train is going to start coming into the picture now. That's my brother. Anyway, it's a great hobby, and there's a place in it for anybody that wants to get into it. You can start out very small and reasonably cheap and work your way up. It's a good hobby, good family hobby.
Those passengers now arriving on track 3. Keep your seats, let train come to Fullerton. Please stop exit to your left on the steps on the right-hand side. Thank you for coming out here Wednesday. We'll see you.
My name is Michael Haywood. I've been a member since 1990. Currently, I am doing the website and all digital publications for the club. I also do all the photo archiving for the club. Currently, we have about 6,000 images going back from the mid-'80s. Just kind of a photographic history of where we are, where we're going, and how the park and everything has changed over the years. As you can see behind us here, we've got 200-300 people come out and ride the trains. It's been that way since '72. I mean, Murray County Park, we were one of the first people here. We try to really maintain the area that we're at here in the park, and the community just loves it. They absolutely adore it. They really, really enjoy coming out, puts a smile on all the kids' faces. It really has changed. I mean, this park was very underdeveloped when we moved in, and a lot of it has been built around the club and to facilitate getting people in and out, parking, restrooms, shelters. It's all been because we were here, and then the park decided, well, we can fill in here, fill in there. So it's amazing. The adults like it so much, but then they end up down there with us wanting to buy one. So, that's usually where that ends up. So, but it's a very family-friendly hobby. We have a lot of people who are multi-generation families who pass their trains down, their kids get interested, learn machining skills and building and welding and things that just aren't taught anymore but are passed down by the parents. And then they come out here and they build their own stuff, and it's a lot of fun.
Hi, I'm Dave Smith. I've been with the club since about 1996, and I got interested in this. I come down to the park one day and I just seen the tracks, and I said, oh, I have to find out about this. And I just started showing up on weekends till I found somebody. And after that, I got to know the guys and find out where I could get a train and what I needed to do. And now I run a Dash 8 Union Pacific diesel, and it's a lot of fun. I haul the public, and I enjoy doing that. It gets boring if you're just out here going round and round by yourself, at least for me. I enjoy hauling the public, so that's a plus.
Well, I'm Joel Pittenger. I'm from the St. Louis Live Steamers, although I'm also a member of Mid-South. I started coming down here probably in the early 80s. My father got introduced to this hobby through one of the old grandfathers of the game by the name of Leo Myers. And we started coming down here with our Camelback that my dad and Leo built together. There are very few people who will pull passengers here with their steam engines because they can't make it up the hills with a big load. There's a traction issue with steam engines. They're very powerful, but they're traction issue because they have fewer wheels and bigger wheels that make them more subject to slipping. Well, we put 208 pounds of lead in between the frames and put a trailing truck drive on it, and that engine will just go chugging up these hills with a pretty big load back here of some pretty good sized folks. But I'll take 8-10 people up that hill like it's not even there. And so they're always glad to see me come down here because it is one of the few steam engines that pulls passengers.
And we enjoy carrying the people on these trains, especially the little kids. They are just in awe, and especially when they see the miniature steam locomotives. And we've never really had a problem with little kids wanting to touch the locomotives, because when they see that smoke, they hear the whistle and other things, they say, you know, I need to kind of be cautious. This thing, I don't know about it. But once they get used to it, they really enjoy riding. They just want to ride and ride and ride.
My name is Lutz Braun. I have to look on here, I forget. I've been here since 85, 86, I'm not sure. They can't find the paperwork, it's that old. Mostly for the first 5 years I shoveled gravel, and I got the Golden Shovel Award. Then we got better and better. We bought some gravel cars, we bought some ties, we bought some rails, and then about 6 years ago they elected me as president, and I'm kind of in the background. I let things ride and let other people do stuff. Don't tell nobody. I love it because of the kids. We're doing it for the kids and the grown-ups too. Because after a while, 6 hours on that thing, you're hurting in the rear end, you know. And so they come here every year just for the fun, running people. That's basically what we're doing. There's two things to the equation. We ride the public around, and that allows other people from all over the country to come here and also ride. It's kind of a give and take situation. So. And the park likes us because when we leave Sunday, this place is cleaner than after Mule Day. After Mule Day, they have a little residues left. Not here. This place is spotless, and you say, where did all the trains go? It's clean as a whistle. They don't even have to pick up after us. So it's kind of, you know, give and take thing. We love it.
I've been with the Mid-South Live Steamers over 25 years. I'm station master here for the Mid-South Live Steamers. I'm part of the organization since 1980s. And it's a great job, a lot of fun. You meet a lot of interesting people. And we have a good time up here, as you can see. The kids, that's what we're here for. The kids love it. The parents love it. They've used the kids as an excuse to come out here. I want to thank everybody for coming out and supporting this organization for the past 50 years. We operate strictly on donations, and want to thank you for coming out. We hope to see you again in the near future. Thanks, appreciate it.
We never, that I can recall, thought about end times. What happens when all of this shuts down? We never even thought of it in those terms. It was just always, well, it'll just keep going somehow. And it has.